Welcome to Resident Evil on the Sony PlayStation from 1996. This wasn't just a frightening romp through a creepy mansion, it was Capcom creating a new standard of atmospheric tension, nerve-wracking scares, and unforgettable moments that still haunt gamers today. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 scariest moments. Every turn meant a new terrifying encounter, and the only thing more horrifying than the mutated monsters might have been the game's horrendous and cheesy voice acting. From fighting through zombies to facing off against hideous creatures that were created in bioweapon experiments, Resident Evil is a survival horror classic. So turn off the lights as we get ready to relive the moments that make you wish you'd just chosen to play a relaxing puzzle game with your cat instead. Resident Evil follows STAR's Alpha Team members Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield as they're forced to explore a mysterious mansion in the Arklay Mountains near Raccoon City. What begins as a simple investigation into a string of murders quickly spirals into a nightmare when the team becomes trapped inside. They're forced to survive against zombies, rabid dogs, and other experimental horrors. What made this game legendary were the constant sense of vulnerability. You never knew what was around the next corner, and with combat deliberately slow and clunky, every encounter was a gamble. Resident Evil has the perfect recipe for both terror and nostalgic charm. The center of the game, the Spencer Mansion itself, is as much of a character as the monsters. It was ostensibly built as a luxurious estate for Umbrella Corporation executives, but in reality, it was hiding a secret underground lab. In 1998, it became ground zero for a T-virus outbreak that turned pets into killers and humans into the Walking Dead. STARS was sent in to deal with it, and the events that followed became the stuff of survival horror legend. Now, let's dive into the top 10 scariest moments from Resident Evil. Number 10. Once ordinary Dobermans, these T-virus-infected Cerberus hounds turned into relentless killing machines. The moment you're calmly walking down a hallway, only to have them suddenly crash through the windows with snarls and snapping jaws, is gaming history's most infamous jump scare. Your heart skips, and you instantly realize nowhere is safe in this mansion. Speed is your only defense here. A handgun works, but the shotgun is the dramatic choice. Number 9. Resident Evil redefined zombies for an entire generation. These weren't corpses clawing out of their graves. They were living humans twisted into cannibalistic shells by the T-virus. The first time you stumble into that room and see one hunched over a body, slowly turning towards you with its lifeless eyes, it's pure nightmare fuel. That iconic groan and shuffling movement sets the tone for the entire game. It's a fight-or-flight moment no player ever forgets.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this.
Trivia moment. Resident Evil was originally envisioned as a modern reimagining of the 1989 horror title Sweet Home. The game underwent multiple transformations during its development. Initially planned as a Super Nintendo title in 1993, it was later reworked into a fully 3D first-person game for the PlayStation in 1994, before ultimately being released as a cinematic third-person survival horror experience. Number 8. In most games, the front door means safety and escape. Not here. Try it in Resident Evil, and instead of freedom, you get another damn Cerberus leaping straight at your face. It's a cruel trick that drives home the message there's no easy way out of this nightmare. Every attempt to escape only drags you deeper in. Number 7. Not every scare in Resident Evil comes from fangs and claws. In one quiet room, you find a spooky old grand piano with the sheet music for Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. When you play it, the haunting melody echoes through the empty mansion, and then the wall shifts, revealing a hidden passage. It's eerie, beautiful, and unsettling all at once. It's a perfect match for the setting of the game. Even this music becomes a tool of suspense. Number 6. At first glance, they're just birds, but these T-virus-infected crows are the definition of death from above. They swoop, peck, and claw with relentless fury, turning hallways full of creepy artwork into a deadly gauntlet of feathers and blood. Luckily, they go down easily with a single bullet. The real fear comes from being caught off guard, wasting your precious ammo, and realizing even the wildlife is just waiting for its chance to take you down. Number 5. Just when you think you've seen it all, the game throws giant spiders the size of large dogs at you. Their hairy legs and venomous fangs make every skittering sound echo like a death sentence. Trapped in the tight hallways with them, you can almost feel the walls closing in as they skitter across the ceiling. It's claustrophobic chamber horror at its finest, and proof that the Umbrella Corporation never met a creature it couldn't ruin. Trivia moment. Resident Evil earned widespread acclaim for its graphics, gameplay, sound design, and immersive atmosphere, though it faced some tough criticism for its dialogue and voice acting. The game became a global bestseller, eventually becoming the highest-selling PlayStation title of its era. By December 1997, it had sold roughly 4 million copies worldwide, generating over $200 million in sales. Number 4. Water levels in games are already nerve-wracking enough, but Resident Evil takes it further by throwing in freakish, mutated sharks into the flooded guardhouse. One splash, one flash of jagged teeth, and you're in panic mode. Moving through the water while these things lurk beneath the surface makes every step feel like it's your last. It's a primal fear. Humans were never meant to fight sharks, let alone undead zombie versions. Number 3. Just when you think zombies are the worst the mansion can throw at you, Umbrella introduces the Hunter Alpha. These reptilian-human hybrids are faster, stronger, and crueler than anything else you've fought. They leap across rooms, slice with razor claws, and if your health is low, they'll put you down in an instant. They're intelligent weapons designed to hunt, and their arrival turns the game into a deadly race for survival. Number 2. Imagine a giant, venomous snake bred to be the ultimate predator, slithering through the mansion and devouring anyone unlucky enough to cross its path. That's the Yawn. The first encounter is terrifying enough, but the rematch or deathmatch is even worse. It stalks and lunges out with lightning speed, and by the time you finally take it out, it's clear that you've faced one of Umbrella's cruelest creations.
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well, then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Trivia moment. In 2004, Resident Evil was ranked 37th in Retro Gamer's list of top retro games of all time, with the magazine describing it as one of the finest horror-themed games ever. They also noted that with its shocks, surprises, and wonderfully cheesy B-movie dialogue, Resident Evil was the video game equivalent of the film Night of the Living Dead. It later earned a spot in the 2008 Guinness World Records Gamers Edition for having the worst game dialogue ever. Additionally, Stuff magazine ranked it as the third best PlayStation game of all time.
1. Go.
Number 1. Designed as the ultimate unstoppable bioweapon, when it bursts out of its holding tank, it feels like the Grim Reaper has just arrived. You can't just kill him outright, no. You survive just long enough to escape.
Can't control what it does.
Umbrella's failed attempt of a super soldier stalks you through the finale, culminating in a desperate last stand on the helipad.
It's coming! Jill! Kill that monster! You're our Amazon, Jill!
Only a rocket launcher has the final word. Resident Evil's scariest moments have stuck with gamers for decades. From jump scares to relentless bosses, this PlayStation classic delivered fear in ways we'd never seen before. If you have your own favorite terrifying moment, drop a comment and share your story. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more nostalgic dives into the games that shaped our childhoods and, in this case, our nightmares. Because in Resident Evil, it's not just the monsters outside that you need to fear. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most audacious games of the original PlayStation era. A game that not only pushed the hardware but fundamentally bent it to its will, creating a new blueprint for 3D adventures in the process. We're talking, of course, about Core Design's 1996 masterpiece, Tomb Raider. But this isn't just a retrospective. For our community of tech enthusiasts and nostalgic gamers, this is a forensic investigation. If you were like me, you probably spent hours trying to figure out how this game world was actually created and brought to life. In this video, we're going to answer the question, how did a relatively small team in Derby, England, working with a console that had only 2 megabytes of RAM and a processor that your 2007 iPhone could run circles around, make a world that felt so vast, so immersive, and a character who became a global icon? This is the story of the ingenious optimization of technical smoke and mirrors, and how Tomb Raider showed the world what was actually possible on the PlayStation. I'll never forget the first time I booted this game up. It was Christmas of 1996. The system was new, the DualShock controller didn't even exist yet, and I was navigating Lara with the original D-pad. I made it through the caves level, and there was a moment, a specific moment, a haunting musical cue that fades into the sound of dripping water and Lara's footsteps. In that moment, the blocky polygons and the chunky pixels didn't matter. I wasn't looking at a video game, I was there. And I think that feeling, that alchemy of turning technical limitations into pure atmosphere, is what we're really here to explore today. I know we look back with rose-tinted glasses, but playing it again today, What's fascinating is how the developers managed to work around the limitations of the hardware to create that sense of awe. So let's begin by understanding the canvas that Core Design was working with. The PlayStation was a revolution, but a constrained one. Its heart was the R3000A CPU, clocked at a then impressive 33.8 MHz. But the real star of the show for 3D graphics was the Geometry Transformation Engine, or GTE. This was a coprocessor hardwired to do one thing incredibly fast: handle the vector mathematics for 3D graphics. It could crank out tens of thousands of polygons per second, but there was a catch. The PlayStation did not have hardware support for floating point operations, which are essential for rendering 3D graphics. But it used various techniques to approximate these features and still provide acceptable 3D graphics. The PS1 can still perform fixed point arithmetic, and using software emulation, floating point numbers can also be computed, although at a slower pace. This is the root of so many of the PS1's signature quirks. That's why polygons often look like they're wobbling or warping, because the precision for their positions in 3D space was limited. The system was essentially making educated guesses, and sometimes those guesses were a little janky. Add to this a paltry 2 MB of main RAM and a mere 1 MB of video RAM, and you start to see the puzzle that Core Design had to solve on a budget of just £440,000. They weren't just building a game, they were building a 3D game on a machine that was still learning what 3D was. Before we dive into it further, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is always here for a quick retro gaming break whenever you need it. I appreciate your support, since it's the only way that YouTube will highlight my videos. The initial concept came from a young art school graduate named Toby Gard, who envisioned a game that mixed the first-person exploration of Ultima Underworld with the 3D characters of Virtua Fighter. He wanted to create an interactive movie, but one that wasn't restricted to pre-rendered video clips. The team, led by Gard and lead programmer Paul Douglas, knew they couldn't use any of Core's existing 3D engines for a project this ambitious. They had to build one from scratch. And their initial target wasn't even the PlayStation, it was the Sega Saturn, which, not coincidentally, debuted the first console release of this game. This decision fundamentally shaped the engine. The Saturn, for instance, only draws quadrilaterals or quads, which imposed a major constraint from the very beginning. And for months, the team struggled with the fundamental question: how do you get a character to interact with free-form 3D environments given the severe processing constraints? The breakthrough that Core came up with was the decision to build everything on a grid. This single choice made the entire project suddenly feasible. The game world was constructed from a series of rooms on a 3D grid, a design directly inspired by the multi-chambered layout of real-world Egyptian tombs, particularly the tomb of Tutankhamun. This grid-based system is the invisible skeleton that the entire game is built upon. This brings us to the most visible symbol of those constraints. Lara Croft herself. Ever wonder why Lara was so pointy? Her iconic triangle chest wasn't just a stylistic choice. It was a direct result of a brutally strict polygon budget. Lara's model is a masterpiece of minimalist engineering, built from the ground up by Toby Gard, using just over 300 polygons. As Gard himself noted, her chest was 2 triangles on either side and 2 quadrilaterals on the front, which was about as efficient as it could be done. He made a conscious trade. Less detail on her body allowed for more polygons on her head and face, ensuring that she had character. The developers at Core Design weren't just artists. They were architects of abstraction. They understood that in the low-poly world, silhouette was everything. By creating a distinct, recognizable shape, those blocky pigtails, the triangular torso, the long legs, they ensured that even in the darkest, most pixelated corridor, you could always tell it was Lara. This technical foundation had a profound impact on the gameplay itself, leading to what is now one of the most debated control schemes in history, the tank controls. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've all complained about them, but understanding the why completely reframes them. With the grid-based level design and fixed camera angles, a modern camera-relative control scheme would have been unplayable. Pressing forward would send Lara in a different direction with every camera cut, so they anchored the control to Lara herself. Forward was always forward from her perspective. This created a precise, almost chess-like movement system. This philosophy was a direct inheritance from the original Prince of Persia, a game the team cited as a major influence. Just like the Prince, Lara has a rigid set of moves with predictable outcomes. A standing jump always covers 2 tiles. A running jump covers 3. There's a deliberate delay between input and action, giving her a sense of weight and momentum. This turned platforming from a test of reflexes into a form of spatial puzzle solving, where success came from carefully planning out your route rather than twitch reactions. The clunkiness was deliberate. It was the only way to make the game work, and once you understood its logic, it gave you a pixel-perfect sense of control. Of course, a tomb wouldn't be very atmospheric if it were silent. The audio in Tomb Raider is another masterclass in working within its constraints. The PlayStation CD-ROM drive allowed for high-quality streamed audio, which is why the game's haunting, English classical music-inspired soundtrack is so memorable. Core's audio team was given a mere 3 weeks to compose the entire score. Lacking a budget for a live orchestra, they created the iconic pieces using synthesizers. For the choral piece, where the depths unfold, they even created recordings of their own breathing to simulate the sound of a real choir. But the sound effects were a different matter. They had to be stored in that limited 2 megabytes of main RAM. The sound designer was also on a tight deadline, with about a month to create the entire game's soundscape. This led to a very sparse but incredibly effective audio design. Unlike most games of the era, music doesn't play constantly. Instead, limited musical cues are triggered at specific dramatic moments. For the majority of the game, the only sounds are the echoing thud of Lara's boots on stone, the specific grind of a block being pushed, the fearsome growl of a wolf, and the chilling silence of ancient ruins. This silence was just as important as the sounds themselves, building tension and making the world feel immense and lonely. Now let's talk about the infamous draw distance, or more accurately, the fog. That thick, soupy fog that seems to just hang 20 feet in front of you in every outdoor area. It wasn't an artistic choice for mood, it was a brutal, necessary culling technique. The PlayStation simply couldn't draw the entire level at once, so the developers used distance fog to hide the pop-in. As Lara moved forward, the level geometry was literally being drawn and erased just beyond the veil of that fog. It was a clever way to mask the system's inability to render long distances, and ironically, it ended up adding to the game's mysterious, claustrophobic atmosphere, even in wide-open areas. You never knew what was lurking in that mist. The camera was another monumental challenge. With controllers lacking analog sticks, giving players direct control wasn't an option. Instead, Paul Douglas programmed a dynamic, intelligent camera system that had to react to any possible circumstance. It featured 4 preset angles that would seamlessly switch depending on Lara's position, often framing the action for cinematic effect, while ensuring the player always had a viable view for platforming. A huge part of making this all work was the proprietary software built in-house. Core's genius programmers created a revolutionary room editor that allowed the level designers to build and test environments in minutes, not hours. This was a game changer. Instead of waiting for a 3D studio render, they could output a room, explore it immediately, and iterate rapidly. Level design was a collaborative process, with monthly meetings where the team would discuss concepts for levels like St. Francis's Folly, brainstorming the themed rooms and their puzzles. Alongside this, they also created a unique tool called the Anim Editor that allowed them to animate Lara's movement in real time by hand. Think about that for a minute. All of her running, shooting, leaping, Even her graceful swan dives and grisly death ragdoll motions were painstakingly animated one frame at a time by hand. Wow. And the reason that hand animation rather than motion capture was used is that Core wanted uniformity and precise control of her movements, which just wasn't possible with the motion capture technology of the time. These two pieces of software were, in the words of the team, 10 to 15 years ahead of themselves, and were arguably as groundbreaking as the game itself. They were instrumental in bringing the game to life. Real quick, if you enjoy this content, I've put a link in the description below of a playlist of all of my other videos that you might also enjoy, so check it out and stick around for a while. As we've seen from the interplay of combining all of the technical elements together, the custom engine, the low-poly character, the grid-based levels, the tank controls, the sparse audio, and others, it allows us to see the complete picture. Tomb Raider is a game that succeeded in spite of its limitations, and in fact, is a game whose identity is forged by that. Every single one of these technical compromises directly contributed to the unique feel, the precise gameplay, and the unforgettable atmosphere that we remember so fondly. Core Designs didn't have the power to create the realistic world like we see in modern-day games today, so they used every trick in the book to create a believable one. They turned the PlayStation's weaknesses into stylistic strengths, and the legacy of this technical achievement is immense. Tomb Raider was the start of an enormous franchise that defined the 3D action-adventure genre. It immediately connected with players, selling over 7 million copies and turning around the fortunes of its publisher, Eidos, from a $2.6 million loss before the game's release into a $14.5 million profit. It proved that a compelling character and the masterful use of a new system's architecture could triumph over its limited graphical power. For me, the ultimate testament to its design came years later, long after I'd moved on to the PS2 and beyond. I found my old PS1 memory card, plugged it in, and loaded up my save file. And there, in Croft Manor, with its blocky textures and chunky geometry, was that feeling again. The feeling of being in a place that shouldn't even be possible, crafted by developers who saw the walls of their technical prison not as barriers, but as a challenge to be overcome. They didn't just make a game for the PlayStation, they broke through what was possible at the time, and in doing so, they built a legend. What are your most vivid memories of the original Tomb Raider? Was it the first time you faced the T-Rex? The puzzle that stomped you for days? Or just the sheer atmosphere of those silent tombs? And what other games from the era do you think performed similar technical magic? Let's get that deep dive conversation started in the comments below. If you enjoyed this look into the tech behind the classic, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. How do you know when something is inherently great? Maybe you just feel it, like when you see a rainbow or hear your favorite song that brings back a flood of happy memories. For me, firing up Wipeout on the PlayStation for the very first time is a perfect example of that feeling. But of course, being great doesn't automatically make something the best. So today, I'm diving into this Retro Gaming Boss review to see if Wipeout really is the best racing game on the original PlayStation. Released in 1995 by Psygnosis, Wipeout was a revolutionary racing game that immediately captured the attention of gamers. Building on the superb foundation that was laid by F-Zero on the Super Nintendo, it took anti-gravity racing to new heights with its futuristic sci-fi twist. Unlike the more conventional racers of the time like Gran Turismo and Ridge Racer, Wipeout combines sleek racing hovercrafts with tight, fast-paced racing and combat over some insane tracks. The game's stunning visuals, coupled with its brilliant techno soundtrack, made it a visual and auditory feast that set it apart from anything else on the market. Before we dive deeper into Wipeout, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and helps keep the retro gaming content coming your way. Now, back to the game. At the time of its release, the racing genre was dominated by more traditional titles such as Super Mario Kart and Daytona USA. These games leaned on simple, arcade-style racing. And to be honest, I first played Wipeout on the Sega Saturn, and while that was very good, the frame rate and visual fidelity didn't quite match up to the smoother animation and more visually impressive PlayStation version. I always thought the hovercrafts in Wipeout really stood out and looked like some sort of combination of high-performance fighter jets and a drag racer. The way this game portrayed the anti-gravity mechanic was more than just a gimmick. It added a level of skill and precision that you had to master to manage the sharp turns, steep inclines, and jumps while managing your speed. The way that Wipeout simulated the physics and feeling of the craft's weight and momentum, along with the sensation of bobbing up and down while being suspended above the tracks, is pretty remarkable, even to this day. The dual analog sticks on the PlayStation controller made the sensitivity and responsiveness of the controls feel so believable and just right. In fact, when I was recently replaying it, I laughed to myself when I thought about how the gameplay feels like barreling down a water slide with your hair on fire while tripping out at a techno rave. Not that I would know. Anyway, the gameplay was an adrenaline rush, and the blend of racing action was taken to the next level with power-ups like missiles, shields, and mines, which added a whole new layer of strategy. There's nothing quite like the thrill of lining up the perfect missile shot or laying down a string of mines across a choke point on the track. The tension of sometimes narrowly winning or losing a race by the smallest margin made Wipeout endlessly challenging and replayable. In comparison, while Gran Turismo was a masterclass in car simulation and Ridge Racer offered traditional arcade thrills, Wipeout was a completely different experience, offering a high-tech rush that was unmatched by the competition. Now here's a fun story from back in 1996. I had the good fortune to attend the E3 Gaming Expo in Los Angeles, where one of the vendors was showing off their early VR-like headsets. They demoed Wipeout using their funky contraption, and let me tell you, it was an experience unlike anything I'd ever had before. The image on screen was like having a massive 80-inch monitor floating in front of my eyes that provided panoramic visuals of the racing. The pounding techno soundtrack came through crystal clear on the stereo headphones, which literally sent the shiver down my spine, with Wipeout HD and Wipeout Omega Collection bringing the franchise into the high-definition era. Even the original PlayStation Portable got into the action, and I remember playing Wipeout Pure in the Zone mode on my PSP while riding the subway into work, and was so enthralled by it that I sometimes missed my stop more than a couple times. Oh well, totally worth it. Just don't tell my boss why I was really late to work those days. No! As for the 2025 fan-made homebrew release that was recently put out for the Sega Dreamcast, that's just another testament to the lasting legacy of Wipeout and the amazing community that keeps these classics alive. It feels amazing seeing the lasting popularity of this game today and recalling how it felt playing it back in 1995 for the first time. So going back to our central question of whether Wipeout is truly the superior racing game on the PlayStation. In summary, what made it the best on the console was its innovative design, gameplay advancements, music, and a pretty flawless overall execution. These factors combined in a way that brought it up to a level that other racing titles just couldn't match. In contrast to the other excellent racing games on the platform, such as Gran Turismo and Ridge Racer, Wipeout was unapologetically stylish and advanced in its presentation, with its ultra-modern vibe from start to finish. The overall presentation was so far ahead of its time that it had an irresistible appeal to players who were looking for something beyond normal racing games. Anyone who's played this classic knows that it's all about how Wipeout so easily pulls you into the zone, immersing you into a new world where speed and adrenaline take center stage. But that's just what I think. Is Wipeout really the best racing game on the PlayStation? Or do you think Gran Turismo or Ridge Racer are better? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear why. And before I go, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe for more retro gaming goodness. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out, reminding you to keep your games old school and keep flying forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Welcome back to the world of survival horror, this time to the rain-slicked, zombie-infested streets of Raccoon City. The 1998 sequel, Resident Evil 2 on the Sony PlayStation, took everything that made the original a classic and turned the terror up to 11. It wasn't just about a spooky mansion anymore. It was about an entire city collapsing into a nightmare. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most terrifying moments from this iconic sequel. Resident Evil 2 perfected the formula of limited ammo, tense puzzles, and a constant, gnawing dread. The game hurled a gauntlet of new terrors at us, from the grotesque G-mutants to an enemy so relentless and unstoppable, he redefined survival horror itself. You'll guide rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy and college student Claire Redfield through a city in chaos, where every corner can hide a new mutation, and the undead are the least of your problems. So lock and load, because we're about to relive the moments that made the Raccoon City Police Department a house of horrors. And to discover the single most terrifying moment this game had to offer, you'll have to survive through this video until the very end. Now, let's dive into the top 10 most terrifying moments from Resident Evil 2. At number 10, we have the police officer zombies. The horror hits home immediately with the fallen officers of the Raccoon City Police Department, seeing the very people meant to protect and serve now shambling and moaning in the halls is a devastating introduction to the outbreak scale. The game torments you further with terrifying encounters, like a zombified cop who suddenly lurches at you while still engulfed in flames. And another whose face morphs into a zombie right in front of your eyes in real time. These moments destroy any hope of finding a safe haven and force you to confront the grim reality that no one was spared from the T-virus outbreak.
9.
Number 9. The Liquor.
I've been a bad, bad girl.
Just when you thought you'd gotten a handle on the zombies, Resident Evil 2 introduces a fearsome new creature, the Liquor. Your first glimpse is through a window, where a pale-skinned nightmare with a massive brain and colossal claws skitters past, unaware of you. But the true terror arrives in the hallway outside of the interrogation room. You turn a corner to find one clinging to the ceiling, its long tongue hanging out in the silence before it shrieks and attacks. This is topped by the infamous basement ambush, where a Liquor drops from the ceiling without any warning in a narrow hallway, creating one of the most perfectly executed jump scares in gaming history.
8.
Coming in at number 8, we have the endless zombie hordes. The undead threat in Resident Evil 2 is relentless and environmental. The game masterfully plays with your sense of security, especially with the boarded up windows that line the police station corridors. You might feel safe for a second, only to have multiple rotting arms suddenly smash through the wood, grabbing at you. Later, entire zombies crash through these windows, turning once familiar hallways into unpredictable gauntlets. These ambushes ensure that you can never let your guard down, making every room transition a heart-pounding risk. Trivia moment. Resident Evil 2 was a massive success, selling over 5 million copies worldwide and becoming one of the best-selling PlayStation games of all time. Its development was famously turbulent. An earlier version, now known as Resident Evil 1.5, was nearly 80% complete before being scrapped entirely. The directors felt it wasn't living up to the original's legacy, so they started over from scratch, creating the classic we know and fear today.
7.
And as our number 7, we have William Birkin, the main antagonist, who isn't just a lab monster. He's a man tragically losing his humanity. The first major encounter with Birkin is in a brutal cutscene. After injecting himself with the G-virus, he emerges from the shadow, his body already grotesquely distorted. His right arm is mutated into a massive, eyeball-adorned claw, and he stumbles with a horrifying mix of fatigue and raw power. The violence of his attack and sheer physical horror of his design make this a story-driven scare that is both shocking and deeply unsettling. Number 6 are the disgusting sewer G creatures. During the events of the Raccoon City outbreak, the G-virus leaked into the city's sewer system, resulting in infested cesspools forming in the tunnels that are home to one of the game's most unsettling monsters, the G creature. The true fear comes from the environment. You're often forced to wade through murky, chest-high water, completely unable to see what's lurking beneath the surface. Without warning, one of these horrors will lurch toward you and can end your fight for survival in an instant. For number 5, we see the full terror of the G-virus made brutally personal in a horrific scene featuring the investigative journalist, Ben Bertolucci. After being implanted with the G embryo by William Birkin, the grotesque creature inside him violently erupts from his chest. This moment forces you to be a helpless witness of a truly visceral and fatal transformation that underscores the nightmarish reality of Umbrella's experiments. Trivia moment. The innovative story design of Resident Evil 2 allows players to experience 2 interwoven campaigns from different points of view. Choices and actions in Leon's story would directly affect the environment and item placement in Claire's, and vice versa. This revolutionary feature encouraged multiple playthroughs that created a richer and more dynamic narrative, a feature that was widely praised at the time and has been imitated in many games since.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down!
Coming in at number 4 is Birkin's attacks on the underground gondola and elevator. The journey to the Umbrella chemical plant offers a brief moment of quiet. That peace is shattered when Birkin's monstrous second form suddenly appears on top of the tram car. He begins tearing through the roof with his razor-sharp claws, trying to get at you and your partner inside. And despite finishing him off, the horror doesn't end there. Later, as you descend into the depths of the Nest Lab in an elevator, his even more powerful third form crashes through the wall, trapping you onto a small metal platform. Descending into the darkness with the hideous clawed monster forces you into a frantic, close-quarters life-or-death struggle. These back-to-back attacks transform the transit sequences into claustrophobic battles for your life against a relentlessly evolving horror. At number 3 is the giant alligator that still lives in your nightmares. The sewers present many horrors, but none quite as scary as the giant alligator. After a frantic chase down a narrow tunnel, you burst into a large, flooded channel. A distant rumbling grows louder until you see it, a massive, mutated gator charging straight at you. The sheer scale of the beast, the thunderous sound of its approach, and a frantic run for your life make this a set-piece scare of epic proportions. Your only hope is a lone valve that you can shoot, causing an explosion in its mouth for a moment of pure, desperate action. Trivia moment. The Nintendo 64 port of Resident Evil 2 was a technical marvel, despite the N64 cartridge's limited storage space compared to the CD used on the other consoles of the day. Developers used an ingenious compression technology to fit the entire game, including all of its full-motion video cutscenes, onto a single 64MB cartridge. This incredible feat of engineering wowed N64 owners and allowed them to also experience the complete, terrifying story of Raccoon City. And at number 2, we have the climax of the game, pitting you against William Birkin's ultimate fourth form. This sprawling, multi-mouthed monstrosity leaps and slashes out in the cramped space of the underground lab. The fight is a desperate last stand, a frantic battle of attrition against a creature that has shed every last trace of its human origins. The terror doesn't end when you defeat it, as you must then execute a heart-pounding escape on a train while the entire Nest facility self-destructs around you.
Hurry up! Leon! Leon!
Inside Umbrella's secret lab. I'll go find something to treat that wound, so just rest here.
And before we reveal number 1, let's take a quick, lighthearted moment to talk about the game's, memorable voice acting.
Save yourself.
Resident Evil 2's famously cheesy voice acting has its unforgettable, if unintentionally funny moments.
You'll be in danger.
Case in point, when a wounded Ada Wong looks up at Leon and delivers the line, "I don't want to lose you," with a dramatic, breathy pause. It's so over the top that it momentarily cuts through the tension. This classic B-movie delivery has become a beloved part of the game's charm.
1. Go.
Coming in at number 1, we have the unforgettable Mr. X. The true king of terror in Resident Evil 2 is the constant, oppressive pursuit of this towering tyrant. From the moment his heavy footsteps begin echoing in the hallway, the entire game changes. He is slow, methodical, and utterly unstoppable by conventional means. The pinnacle of this dread is when he smashes clean through a solid wall to get to you, shattering any last illusion of being able to hide within the environment to avoid him. Mr. X turns the entire police station from a sanctuary into his personal hunting ground, and his relentless presence is a masterclass in psychological horror that defines the entire experience. So there you have it, Resident Evil 2's top 10 most terrifying moments that cemented its place as the pinnacle of survival horror back in 1998. From the iconic debut of the Licker to the earth-shattering terror of Mr. X. This sequel took the foundation of the original and built a bigger, smarter, and far more frightening nightmare. If you have your own favorite moment of pure terror from the streets of Raccoon City, drop a comment and share your story. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more nostalgic dives into the games that shaped our childhoods and, in this case, our nightmares. Because in Resident Evil 2, the scariest monster isn't always the one that you can see. Sometimes, it's the one that you can only hear, getting closer and closer with every step. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.